phenomenon. So we need to build on the momentum to make sure we keep moving forward on improving access to those services, especially for children and youth. That is a significant priority for us. So I really encourage you to read the standard. You can get your copy of the summary. I've focused my remarks today on one single recommendation. There are many, many more. There are many other activities of the Mental Health Commission. Indeed, later this month, we're going to be releasing the world's first set of standards for psychological health and safety in the workplace. If you think about occupational health and safety standards, what's it mostly about? Steel toes and hernia trusses, right? But the reality is, in a postmodern economy, very few people are lifting anything heavy. They're primarily valued for their contributions, as you are, from the neck up. And yet, that part of our health and safety has not historically been the subject of any standards whatsoever. And with those new standards, I can tell you, will come new opportunities for people in the counseling and psychotherapy business, because businesses, the corporate sector, is paying a huge amount of attention to this now. At Bell Canada, or just as an example, you may know that Bell, as an organization, has made mental health their charity of choice. And Bell has already put up $50 million in donations across Canada around mental health. But it's not just about giving away money. It's about transformational leadership at the very top. George Cope, the CEO, has mandated 4,000 of his managers to be trained in better recognition of mental health problems in the workplace. And I heard George speak recently about the fact that the implementation of this program, again, remembering that mental illness is the #1 cause of disability in the Canadian private sector in Canada and in the Canadian public sector. Implementation of the program has led to earlier return to work for Bell employees. And guess what that translates into? The program has already paid for itself. So what looked like an initial extra amount has turned out to be a net savings. It's also important for workplaces in terms of retention, for employees feeling valued, that their mental health is more of a priority than was traditionally the case. It's also an important step in the war against stigma and discrimination. So there are many other things happening at the Commission beyond what I talked about today. And I think many of them will bear some relationship to your professional practice. So I would encourage you, when you have time, to go through the recommendations and think about A, how they may apply to your work, but B, what can you do? What can you do to be part of this effort to change attitudes and behavior and to improve the mental health of Canadians? Because all too often in Canada, we sort of lie back and wait for the government to do things for us. This will take much more than governments. This takes a citizens' movement. So finally, I want to congratulate you again on your 20th anniversary and on your upcoming transition, and I'd be happy to take any questions. Yeah.
Yes, you refer to the UK. I understand that in the UK it's very similar to Canada. There are different levels of professionals like chartered psychologists, psychotherapists, and counselors, etc. That's right here. And in Ontario, psychologists are regulated at the moment. And how could Ontario pool all these resources and work one umbrella? Because out there, I heard that there seems to be quite an amount of tension or fear that these new college of psychotherapists are coming, and it seems to be perceived as somebody who is snatching their work. And I don't know whether you have this impression or not. And how would the commission can do something about it?
Okay. First of all, we can simply look at the evidence that there is more than enough work for everybody, right? I don't think you have to worry about a highly competitive marketplace. You're not going to run out of potential clients or patients. But clearly, when it comes to funding, and particularly public funding, the funders are going to look to regulated professionals long before they look to unregulated professionals. It's one of the reasons why we're creating accreditation standards even for peer support, right, at a national level. So that I think the trick is, number one, to have meaningful regulation and accountability. And then number two is to look at where do we fit in the puzzle. In other words, are we all competing for the same person? Are we all doing the same thing? I don't believe so, right? The reality is the law is in Ontario. There are two groups that can make psychiatric diagnoses, right? Registered psychologists and physicians. Nobody else can make a diagnosis. I think that psychiatrists should not be in the primary care business, which many of them are, right? The people go straight to a psychiatrist from the community in a way that they wouldn't to any other medical specialty. Nobody phones a neurosurgeon and says, you know, I've got a pounding headache. You think it might be a brain tumor? Could I come and see you? Anybody, and that's a common fear, obviously, for anybody who's got a pounding headache, right? The system does not work that way, but it has kind of devolved that way for psychiatry. And I think that psychiatry has abandoned its fuller consultative role, its diagnostic role, its consultative role about recommendations. But there are lots of things that we as psychiatrists see that do not require ongoing treatment by psychiatrists. We need people, accessible people, who can provide ongoing care. And, you know, I've had those kinds of collaborative relationships with psychologists, with social workers, with other therapists. It is feasible to achieve, but people really have to, A, get to know each other and find ways of collaborating together. And I would emphasize also that it's not just about psychiatrists in terms of publicly funded health professionals. I think the primary care docs are a really important connection to cement for therapists and counselors in the community. Yeah.
You mentioned about